First introduced for the 1962 model year, Pontiac's Grand Prix always had a bit of a sporting flair versus other models in the lineup. Pioneered by Pontiac's head of advanced engineering at the time, John DeLorean, the Pontiac Grand Prix was essentially a Catalina in terms of wheelbase and overall body, but with a number of sporty features standard, including center console, 4-barrel carburetor, and 303 horsepower engine. For 1963, the Grand Prix transitioned to the stacked headlight theme with very clean body sides. According to Bill Porter, who was a designer in Pontiac's studio at the time and later became Pontiac's chief designer, the 63 Grand Prix was Pontiac's response to the Lincoln Continental, and this can be seen with the extremely clean body sides and the overall styling theme. The 63 Grand Prix was undoubtedly a commercial success, selling about 70,000 units in its first year. But as the years ticked by in 1964 through 67, sales really decreased significantly from the original 70-plus thousand units to in 1967 just about 37,000 units. And in 1968, the car took on a very different theme just for 1 year. And again, didn't sell very well, selling about 32,000 units. However, in 1969, Pontiac introduced an all-new Grand Prix that would set new sales records for the model lineup and quadruple the sales over the previous generation to almost 113,000 units. The 1969 model transitioned away from the Catalina chassis and went on to the General Motors A body, actually a stretched A body that was called the A Special or later the G body. It had a 118-inch wheelbase, and it also had Pontiac's longest ever hood. According to various sources at the time, this Grand Prix was really John DeLorean's invention and his creation, albeit with some help from the Pontiac marketing folks. By using most of the A-body mechanicals underneath from the Le Mans and GTO, the Grand Prix development time was shortened significantly from the typical 3 to 4 years down to less than 2 years, around 18 months. And this way, the overall engineers and designers could focus on refining the exterior and interior styling as opposed to the underlying mechanicals. The end result was a car that lost the hidden headlights of the previous version as well as the fastback design and went to exposed headlights, a different front beak, if you will, and weighed 800 pounds less than its full-size predecessor. It also went on sale in September of 1968 as a 1969 model. Rumor has it that John DeLorean wanted to capture the spirit of old Duesenbergs, hence the nomenclature for the models with the J and the SJ models, although no supercharger ever found its way under the hood here. Despite the lack of a supercharger, power was quite formidable at the time, with two 400 cubic inch engines and two 428 cubic inch engines available in the 1969 Grand Prix. The standard engine was a 400 cubic inch 4-barrel V8 with 10.5 to 1 compression ratio, making 350 gross horsepower. Optional was a 428 cubic inch engine, making 370 horsepower, and the top dog was a high output 428 cubic inch engine, making 390 horsepower. There was also an economy 400 cubic inch 2-barrel engine that ran on regular fuel available as a no-cost option. That engine made 265 horsepower. The inside of the Grand Prix featured one of the most seminal interiors in American car design, with a heavily driver-centric cockpit long before other competitive makes, particularly those from Germany, would try to claim this theme as their own. The wraparound dash and hooded gauges gave the driver a feeling of both intimacy as well as performance, and that they were well in control of this personal luxury coupe. Interior fabrics included 100% Moroccoide seating surfaces, a combination of Moroccoide and cloth, or genuine leather combined with Moroccoide. The interior was quite the place to be, with the 1969 brochure touting that every control, rocker switch, or gauge faced the driver directly, something that, as I mentioned before, was highly unusual for the time. The car also debuted a number of new innovative features for GM, including a radio antenna hidden within the windshield, electronic rear window defroster, pop-out door handles, as well as side impact beams in the doors for safety. In 1970, a few minor revisions were made to the Grand Prix. Under hood, the 428 cubic inch engine gave way to Pontiac's new high-compression 455 engine, with only one option in this regard, a 370 horsepower 455 engine. The 400 four-barrel was still standard, and there was still an economy 400 cubic inch two-barrel engine optional at no cost. The grille texture and badging also changed slightly versus 1969 models. 1970 also saw the introduction of a number of copycat models from other General Motors divisions, including the 1970 Monte Carlo. 1971 would see some significant changes to both front and the rear end styling, with the front now having 2 headlights as opposed to 4, and the back displaying somewhat of a boat tail theme. Under hood, though the powertrains didn't change in size, they did change in their overall horsepower, driven by the General Motors edict that all engines in 1971 had to be able to run on no-lead, regular, unleaded fuel. Thus, the 400 cubic inch engine was dropped to about 255 net horsepower, and the 455 dropped to 260 net horsepower. Importantly, these horsepower ratings were different from previous gross horsepower ratings and included assessing the engines while they were equipped with accessories as well as exhaust systems and an air cleaner. For 1972, some minor styling changes to the grille as well as interior wood trim occurred, and the engine options changed horsepower slightly. But the car was relatively the same as the 1971 model. Overall, the 1969 Grand Prix, which continued through the 1972 model year, proved a very popular car for Pontiac buyers. It also helped reinforce and enlarge a growing market segment of personal luxury coupes, not only due to the Grand Prix sales, but also other copycat models, which also proved popular with consumers. One interesting tidbit that was related to me by a former member of GM Design was that the front end of the Grand Prix was inspired by the 1920s era Miller race cars. You can see an example of one of these here at the recent Eyes on Design show in Grosse Pointe, Michigan. And I've tried to check this out with other designers who worked at General Motors at the time, and though nobody can quite confirm it, no one also denies it. And in fact, many say, that actually seems to be in keeping with the thought processes and thinking that was going around the building at the time. So take a look at this Miller race car and judge for yourself whether or not the 1969 to 72 Grand Prix bears somewhat of a resemblance to the front end shown here. Thanks again for watching this video on the 1969 to 72 Grand Prix. Until next time, take care. Thanks again for watching this video on the 1969 to 72 Pontiac Grand Prix. If you enjoyed it, please like, comment, and subscribe, as that helps the YouTube algorithm serve this up to more viewers like you. And until next time, be sure to check out the video thumbnails at the bottom left and bottom right for some suggestions for you. And lastly, if you have not yet subscribed, please click the circular icon of the 67 Buick Riviera at the top left, then hit the bell to ensure you're notified of all my future videos. Thanks again for watching. Until next time, take care.